الديان يوم الدين وجامع الناس ليوم لا ريب فيه يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد. We still in the second hadith of Arba'in, the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi rahimahullah. And so we reached to the part Al-Iman bil-Yawm al-Akhir, to believe in the Day of Judgment. Believing the Day of Judgment starting from anything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about the Day of Judgment, anything Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned about the Day of Judgment. And then starting from the grave, and then the punishments in the grave, and or blessing in the grave, and then after the day of resurrection to the time people enter the Jannah and the hellfire. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect all of us from the hellfire. And from the signs of piety, taqwa. From the signs of piety, Imam Ali radiallahu anhu, he said, الخوف من الجليل والرضا بالقليل والعمل بالتنزيل والاستعداد ليوم الرحيل. This is the meaning of piety. The meaning of piety, 4 things. Even it's out of the subject, but it's related to the part of the subject, or to the subject. The meaning of piety, or the characteristics of the pious. Ali radiallahu anhu, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, he said, al-khawfu min al-jalil. You have a fear of Allah in your heart. وَالرِّضَى بِالْقَلِيلِ. And you pleased with anything Allah gave you, even a little bit. وَالْعَمَلُ بِالتَّنزِيلِ. And you apply what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَالْإِسْتِعْدَادُ لِيَوْمِ الرَّحِيلِ. And you prepare for the Day of Judgment. So the Day of Judgment starting, like we said, from the grave. Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu wa arda, when somebody mentioned the grave, he used to cry. And then somebody asked him, why when someone talk about the hellfire, you not cry? But when someone mentioned the grave, you cry.
Sorry, can you mention the third and fourth again?
Huh?
Can you mention the third and fourth again?
4 rak'ah?
No. Can you mention the third and fourth again?
The piety.
About the piety?
Yeah.
Okay. The characteristics of the pious. 4. Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, he mentioned, he said, to have a fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be pleased with anything Allah give you, even a little bit, and to apply what Allah sent it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to prepare for the Day of Judgment. And then I forgot, the second part. Okay. I'm just listening with Yusuf. I will blame on him. Anything happens, blame on him. Okay, Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, he said, you know, when somebody asked him, why somebody mentioned the hellfire, you not cry. But when someone talking about the grave, you cry. He said, because I hear the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam قال إن القبر أول منزل من منازل الآخرة إن طاب طاب ما بعده وإن خاب فخاب ما بعده أو إن طابت منزلة إن طابت فطابت ما بعدها وإن خابت خابت ما بعدها. He said, because I hear the Prophet ﷺ, he said, the grave is the first stop of the Day of Judgment. It's the first stop of the Day of Judgment. If you good in the first stop, then after will be much better. If you're not good in the first stop, then after will be even worse. That's why I cry. Because I don't know how the grave will be. So the grave starting, Qiyamah, the Day of Judgment, starting from the death. And if someone, man mata faqad qamat qiyamatuh. Whoever died, so his Qiyamah is started. His Day of Judgment start from there, after he died. And then as we talking about to believe in the Day of Judgment, and we have to believe there's a adab and there's a na'im fil qabr. There's a punishment and there's an enjoyment in the grave. This is part of the Qiyamah. We have a hadith. I hope not take too long, and I don't like to make it too long for you guys. Hadith, there's a different narrations, but hadith Bara ibn Azib radiyallahu anhu wa ardah قال خرجنا مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم في جنازة رجل من الأنصار فلما انتهينا إلى القبر ولما يلحد بعد فجلس رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وجلسنا حوله وبيده عود ينكت به في الأرض ثم رفع رأسه قال تعوذ بالله من عذاب القبر مرتين أو ثلاث. قلنا نعوذ بالله من عذاب القبر. ثم قال إن العبد المؤمن إذا كان انقطاع من الدنيا وإقبال إلى الآخرة نزل إليه ملائكة من السماء بيض الوجوه كأن وجوههم الشمس ومعهم كفن من أكفان الجنة ومعهم حنوط من حنوط الجنة فيجلسون منه مد البصر ينتظرون ملك الموت فيأتيانه فيقولان يأتيه ملك الموت يقول أيتها النفس الطيبة اخرجي إلى رضوان الله ثم يكفنونه بهذا الكفن ويحنطونه بهذا الحنوط ثم يأخذونها إلى السماء الأولى فلا يمرون بملأ من الملائكة إلا قالوا ما هذا الروح الطيب فيسمونها بأسمائه التي كان يسمى بها في الدنيا إلى السماء الأولى ثم يستفتحون فيفتح لهم فيشيعوها من كل سماء مقربوها إلى السماء التي تليها إلى السماء السابعة فينادي مناد ردوه إلى الأرض فإني منها خلقتهم وفيها أعيدهم ومنها أخرجهم تارة أخرى. ثم يأتيانه ملكان فيجلسانه ويسألانه من ربك؟ فيقول ربي الله. وما دينك؟ يقول ديني الإسلام. ومن نبيك؟ نبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. ما يدريك؟ يقول قرأت كتاب الله وآمنت به وصدقته. فينادي مناد أن صدق عبدي فأفرشوه من الجنة وافتحوا له بابا إلى النار فيرى مقعده في النار فيقولان له أو يقال له هذا كان مقعدك فأبدلك الله بهذا المقعد في الجنة. فيبدأ ويصرخ ويقول يا ربي أقم الساعة يا ربي أقم الساعة. This is first part of the hadith. That's why I said that I will not take too long. So we have a hadith Bara ibn Azib. I want you to listen to the hadith. There's a different narrations, and I think I missed, I don't know how many words or different words. We ask Allah to forgive us. But the hadith Bara, he said, we follow a funeral with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam until the graveyard. And then he said, they put the janazah because they're still working on the grave, not ready yet. He said, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting, and we are surrounding the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said he had a stick hitting the ground. And then he said he looked up and he said, seek refuge in Allah from the punishment of the grave. 2 or 3 times he said it. He said we ask Allah to protect us from the punishment of the grave. And then, so this part I forget in Arabic. يقول وكأنما على رؤوسنا الطيش. They were surrounding with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said we are sitting the way we sitting as a person. There is a bird top of his head. He doesn't want to move for the bird to not fly. Yani this much they are quiet and listening to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and thinking about the situation. Janazah, grave, and qiyamah. He said, and then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, when the believer about to die, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he sent angels to him. They sit from him as far as I see. How far? So he said they waiting for the Malakul Maut, the angel of death. This is showing also the angel of death his name is angel of death. There is no any other names. Israel is not a name. It's not a name for the Malakul Maut. Because there is no ayah, there is no hadith. So he said they are waiting, the angels, waiting for, angel of death. And they have a coffin from the Jannah. And they have a oil from the Jannah. And some scholars, they mentioned the explanation of the hadith. They said if this oil, one drop fall off in the earth, all people upon the earth, they smell it. If one drop fall on this earth, everyone smell it. So they waiting for angel of death, and then angel of death come to him. And then he sit behind his head. And then he's talking to his soul. He said, beautiful soul, come out to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Come out to the mercy and pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they take his soul, they put it on the coffin they have from the Jannah, and they put the oil they have from the Jannah, and then they take him up to the sky. And all the malaika, the group by group, when they pass by the malaika, the angels, they're following his funeral to the first sky. And then they ask for the sky to be open, the doorman. They ask, there's a doorman for the sky, for the gate of the sky. They ask to open a gate for them. And then they open a gate. And then the angels group, every group following his funeral to the second sky. Then same thing. Each sky, the angels following his funeral until the 7 skies. And then over there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, also I forget in Arabic, اكتبوا كتاب عبدي في عليين وردوه إلى الأرض. So also over.
You forget in English too. For Malaika, they are asking what is it.
Huh?
When they are taking his soul, the Malaika, they are asking who's this guy.
You see, this is our weakness. Yeah, so they every group they asking who's this beautiful soul, and then they say this is Fulan ibn Fulan. يسمونها بأسمائه التي كانت يسمى بها في الدنيا. So they ask, the angels asking each other, who's this beautiful soul? Came up. And they mention his beautiful names. They used to be named in the dunya. Like nice, kind, trustworthy, all these beautiful, characteristics. Until in the 7th heaven, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command the angels to write his name with the name of the believers in the Illiyin, the highest level in Jannah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command to send the soul back to his body in the grave. And then when the soul come back to the grave, there's the 2 angels come to him. Munkar and Nakir. This is the names of the angels coming to you in the grave. And then they ask with a scary face, asking, who's your Lord? He will say, Allah. What's your deen, religion? He will say, Islam. Who's your prophet? He will say, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then they ask, how you know? He said, I read the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I believe, and I trust it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he called, Sadaqa Abdi. What he said is truth. So put a bed for him from the beds of the Jannah and his grave. And then Allah will ask to open a space in the hellfire to show him this used to be your spot, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you're following Allah's command, so Allah changed it for you, and then they show him his place in Jannah. And then he start screaming, oh Allah, bring the Qiyamah. Oh Allah, bring the day of judgment. He's in pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when he see his place in Jannah, he's asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring the day of judgment. And then the second part, I'm going to go just mention the English. I think will be too long, and I don't want you to, to be bored from me. The second part, also, the meaning of it, when the disbeliever about to die, also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send angels, and they come down with the dark face. And then they have a musuh, they have a coffin, from the fire. They have a coffin from the fire. And they are sitting the same distance waiting for angel of death. And then When the angel of death come to him, and then he sit behind his head, and he will tell him, "O evil soul, come out to the punishment and to the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." And then they took فتنتزع روحه كما ينتفد الصوف من الصفود من الصوف المبلول. This part also I forget in Arabic to mention. You know, you see, there's a fruits and turn into a thorns all around. It's like a
Nails.
yes, all nails. I don't know what they call it in English, but it's like a porcupine. It turned to like a porcupine. No, it's all around thorns. And then when catch the wool of an animal doesn't come out easy. Doesn't come out easy. So they mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command the angels, they take his soul difficulty from his body. And then the angels coming, they putting his soul and this coffin from the hellfire, and then يخرج من روحه كأنتن جيفة وجدت على وجه الأرض. When they put his soul in this coffin from the fire, they smell something never ever someone smell it. Worse than any bad smell in this earth. And then they take it to the sky. And then they passed by any group of the angels, they run away. They said, who is this evil soul coming up? And then they mention his bad names. Cheater, liar, whatever bad names, people used to, say about him. They mention all these names while they take him until the 7 heavens. And then over there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he command to write his name from the people of the hellfire. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command to return the soul to his body to the grave. And then coming back to the grave. And then the angels coming, asking him. They scared him and then asked him, who's your Lord? And then he said, I don't know. And then what's your religion? He said, I don't know. Who's your prophet? He said, I don't know. I used to say, the people used to say. And then, there's a call coming. He's a liar. And then put the bed from the hellfire on his grave to the day of judgment. And then open a space for him in Jannah. They show him, they used to tell him, they tell him, this used to be your place, but because you disobey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah switched it for you to this place, and they show him his place at the hellfire. And then he starts screaming, yelling, oh Allah, don't bring the day of judgment. Even he's in punishment, he's not in a good shape, but also I forget, فَيَأْتِيهِ عَمَلُهُ. And the first one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turned his good deeds to a nice person and looking good and smell good. And then the first one, this is for the believer. And then we'll ask him, who are you? He said, أَبْشِرْ بِالَّذِي يَسُرُّكَ أَنَا عَمَلُكَ الصَّالِحِ. Be pleased and, good news for you, and be happy. I'm your good deeds. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make me in this shape, to be with you. And the other one, the person who's going to the fire, also the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Allah turned his actions to an evil person, evil looking, smell very bad, and then he will say, your face is looking like an evil. Who are you? He will say, bad news for you. I'm your evil actions. Allah turned me like this, to like a punishment for you in the grave. So this is, hadith about the grave. So there's a punishment and there's an enjoyment in the grave. And then coming after the day of judgment, the day of resurrection, we know all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created us from the clay. And then we return to a clay. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala return back, resurrect us also from the clay, meaning from the dirt, from the earth. from the soil. So this is the situation. The day of resurrection will get up and people all going to the judgment. Now, we have many ahadith. I don't know what should I mention, to you about the day of judgment. One of the things of the day of judgment, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لن تزول قدم عبد يوم القيامة حتى يسأل عن أربع عن ماله من أين اكتسبه وفيما أنفقه وعن علمه ماذا عمل به وعن عمره فيما أفناه. So this is the four things. He will be moved, meaning no decision for him until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judge him for four things. The first one, for his money, how he making it and how he spend it. How he making it and how he spend it. And about his life, and about his actions, about his knowledge, what he did with his knowledge. So this is the things he will be asked on the day of judgment. And then the hadith mentioned that الناس في عرقهم منهم من إلى كعبيه ومنهم من إلى ركبتيه ومنهم من إلى حقويه ومنهم من يرجمه العرق الجامع. So there's people sweating at the day of judgment, waiting for the judgment. Some people sweating based on their bad deeds and good deeds. So more bad deeds, people sweating more. So some people sweating, they are standing on their sweat up to their ankles. And some people sweating, they're standing on their sweat up to their knees. And some people sweating, this is based on bad deeds and good deeds. Some people sweating, and he's standing in his sweat up to his, half of his body. And some people, he's drawing his sweat, and he's standing, and nobody affecting others. Each one, he is for himself. And this is the situation, people waiting for the day of judgment. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after, there's a many hadith, to talk. So this is about the day of judgment until the people, Allah will decide who's going to the Jannah and who's going to the hellfire. The one thing we should, point to it, the people who go to the hellfire, as soon as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decide for them to go to the hellfire, the gate is open directly for them to enter the hellfire. And then for the people of Jannah, the gate is not open, even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decide. Until Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam make intercession, and then the gate will be open. This is karama for the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and for his ummah. And then this is also part of the Qiyamah. There is paradise forever, hellfire forever. And then after, people of the hellfire go to the hellfire, and people of the Jannah or paradise go to paradise. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He bring death in the image of a lamb, sheep, ram, whatever you want to call it. So Allah bring death in the image of a ram, sheep, and then asking people of the hellfire, do you know what is this? They say, yes, this is death. They ask the people of Jannah, do you know what is this? They said, yes, this is death. And then telling the both sides, people in Jannah and people in the hellfire, okay, look, the death will be slaughtered. There's no more death. So the death will be slaughtered between both, and all they see. And then after that, the people in Jannah, they will be more happy because there's no more death. The death is slaughtered, is gone. No more death. And then people of the hellfire, they will be more sad because before that time, they have a hope to come out after some punishment, go to the Jannah, go to the paradise. But after when they see the death slaughtered, so they knew there is no more death, they start screaming, yelling, and become more sad than before. So there's many things about the Day of Judgment, but I think this is enough to talk about al-imanu bil-yawm al-akhir. How long will we be talking? Check the time.
30 minutes.
Huh?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay, I think we are going to give you some time for questions if there's any questions, inshallah.
You want to go to the question?
I don't know. So if